الحمد لله الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده ولا أمة بعد أمته ولا كتاب بعد كتابه ولا شريعة بعد شريعته فقد قال الله جل وعلا في القرآن المجيد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ومن آياته خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف ألسنتكم وألوانكم إن في ذلك لآيات للعالمين صدق الله العظيم. Honorable scholars, my respected brothers, elders, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In Surah Al-Rum, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alludes to one of the great signs of His existence. And Allah says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ خَلْقُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. That from amongst His signs is the flawless creation of the heavens and the earth. So flawless it is indeed that Allah Ta'ala in Surah Al-Mulk says, فَارْجِعِ الْبَصَرَ كَرَّتَيْنِ. That don't look upon the sky once, but rather look upon multiple times. Your eyes will return to you in a state that it is humbled, but you will never ever find any fault in the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَاخْتِلَافُ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ وَأَلْوَانِكُمْ. And from amongst His signs is the diverse nature of your languages and your complexions. Yes, this is a sign of the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His existence. That humankind who hail from one set of parents have such a diverse set of languages and complexions. And just as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the physical nature of humankind to be different in every aspect, in the same way the understanding, the intellect, the way of processing certain things is different for each and every individual. So we might find a group of people who agree on something some of the time, but you will never ever get everyone to agree on everything all of the time. This is something that simply doesn't happen. But the beauty is when a group of people or two individuals or a couple can disagree on something and yet maintain the relationship. When a couple can disagree not once but on multiple occasions, yet maintain the love that exists between them. Imam Dhahabi rahimahullah ta'ala documents in his seer with regards to Yunus bin Abdul A'la as-Sadafi, who was a great scholar and min khassati talamid al-Shafi'i, from amongst the renowned students of Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala. So Yunus says that ma ra'aytu a'qala min al-Shafi'i. I did not find anyone who was more intelligent than Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala. Nazamtuhu yawma, one day I had an intense debate with him, and both of us very vigorously proved our points. And then it was time for us to disperse. فَلَقِيَنِي وَأَخَذَ بِيَدِي. He took me by my hand, and he said, يا أبا موسى ألا يستقيم أن نكون إخوانا وإن لم نتفق في مسألة. That is it not prudent that we remain brothers even though we fail to disagree on something? Why can't it be that we disagree on everything, yet the brotherhood between us remains? Shaykh Awama rahimahullah ta'ala commentating on this says, take note of وَإِن لَمْ نَتَّفِقْ فِي مَسَألَةٍ. Even if we fail to disagree on anything, even that should not taint the brotherhood that exists between us. Shaykh Awama rahimahullah ta'ala, the great Syrian scholar of hadith, in his kitab Adabul Ikhtilaf writes that one day I was visited by a good friend of mine, Sheikh Muhammad bin Siraj from Istanbul, and during our discourse and our discussion, he mentioned an incident that took place between the two great luminaries of the last century, the last Sheikhul Islam of the Ottoman Khilafah, Sheikh Mustafa Sabri, and his deputy, Sheikh Zahid al-Kawthari. He said both these scholars had a very strong difference of opinion with regards to a certain mas'ala. But very later on in their lives, Sheikh Muhammad Amin says that I visited, as per my habit, every Thursday night Sheikh Mustafa Sabri. And he said that it is my desire to visit Sheikh Zahid, but my health does not permit me to climb the staircase in his home. So perhaps relay my wish to him, and perhaps we could meet at a neutral location at the River Nile. They both lived in Egypt after the fall of the Ottoman Khilafah. So he said this was easy to arrange because I would visit Sheikh Zahid on every Friday. So I mentioned the wish of Sheikh Mustafa Sabri, and he was elated with this. He said, I was the third person in this get-together, and it was 2 months before Sheikh Zaid Kawthari passed on. Sheikh Hawama says that if anyone had to read the articles that each one wrote against the view of the others, then you would be extremely amazed with the manner in which they dealt with each other, separating the academic difference from the personal relationship. This is why Imam Shafi'i said to that very same student of his, Yunus bin Abdul A'la, that لا تحاول الانتصار في كل الاختلاف فأحيانا كسب القلوب أولى من كسب المواقف. That do not seek victory in every difference that you have with the next person, with your brother, with your family member, because sometimes winning hearts is far more important than being right in an argument. He said, don't burn every bridge that you have built and you have tried and you have crossed, because it might very well be that you would need to go back on that bridge one day. He said, ikrah al-khata, hate the evil that a person does, وَلَا تَكْرَهِ الْمُخْطِئ, but do not hate the wrongdoer. انتقل القول, criticize the speech of anyone that you need to, ولكن احترم القائل, but have adab and have respect for the person who is speaking. Because, and this is the important part, our desire is to remove and eradicate the sickness, but it is not to kill the patient. Our view and our desire is to eradicate the sickness, but it's not to kill the patient. Today, petty issues have led us down the road of the total breakage of ties, as if no bonds of brotherhood ever existed. And when we consider ourselves one ummah and brothers, then there is nothing more painful than this type of fragmentation. That two people who say that we believe in La ilaha illallah, that Allah is our creator and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is our guide and role model, act out in times of conflict in a manner which is completely contrary to his example. The termination of ties, hatred between brothers, people of a community and the ummah is something which is so detrimental. We said today, on the day of Jumu'ah, perhaps 84 days away from the month of Ramadan, wherein everyone is so elated and very ready to acquire the good deeds of the time, whether it is salah or sadaqah. And we speak to the brothers who have already booked their umrah trip. Why? Because of the reward for those who perform an umrah in the month of Ramadan. But we should be very wary of the proverbial leaking bucket. And that is filling our coffers and our buckets with the good deeds of salah and siyam and sadaqah, and all the time losing it through hatred, malice, and the breakage of ties. That is why the reconciliation and reconciling between two people is so lauded and loved in Islam, because it cements the good that a person does. The hadith of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam elucidates this very well. One day he's sitting with the Sahaba, and he says, أَلَا أُخْبِرُكُمْ بِأَفْضَلَ مِنْ دَرَجَةِ الصِّيَامِ وَالصَّلَاةِ وَالصَّدَقَةِ. That, O my Sahaba, should I not inform you of an action that is more beloved to Allah than your salah, your sadaqah, your fasting? Sahaba were always optimistic of achieving greater rewards. He said, Bala ya Rasulullah, please do inform us. He said, Salahu dhatil bayn, reconciling between two people. فَإِنَّ فَسَادَ ذَاتِ الْبَيْنِ هِيَ الْحَالِقَةِ. For certainly the erosion of ties is something destructive. Haliqa in Arabic means something that cuts, a blade or something that cuts. In another hadith, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, لا أقول تحلق الشعر ولكن تحلق الدين. I do not say that it is a blade that removes hair, but rather this blade is a blade that removes deen from your heart. When we allow ill feelings to breed in our heart, then very quickly you would notice how that ill feelings become dislike. And that dislike very rapidly transforms into hatred. And when hatred becomes the order of the day, then riba becomes very common in your life. Then planning the downfall of your next Muslim brother becomes an everyday job. That is why the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, malice and hatred between two brothers is something destructive. When we analyze the current state of this ummah, especially when it comes to the Middle East, Gaza and surrounding areas, we always notice our scholars exhort us towards istighfar. Through istighfar, doors are open. Through istighfar, Allah Ta'ala opens ways. Through istighfar, hurdles are removed. And this is correct. But istighfar comes to everyone except the one between him and his brother. There is malice, there is hatred. The hadith of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says that tuftahu abwabul jannati yawm al-ithnain wa yawm al-khamis. That every Monday and Thursday the doors of Jannah are flung open. فَيُغْفَرُ لِكُلِّ عَبْدٍ لَا يُشْرِكُ بِاللَّهِ شَيْئًا. And every servant with tawheed is given forgiveness by Allah Ta'ala. إِلَّا رَجُلًا كَانَتْ بَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَ أَخِيهِ شَحْنًا. Except that individual between him and his brother there is malice. For them it is said أَنظِرُوا هَذَيْنِ حَتَّى يَصْطَلِحَا. أَنظِرُوا هَذَيْنِ حَتَّى يَصْطَلِحَا. That hold on to the forgiveness of these individuals until they do not reconcile with one another. When we analyze our lives, we would come to the conclusion that one of the causes of the breakdowns of relationships, whether it's between businessmen, people of a community, brothers and sisters, husbands and wives, is the vast difference in the way we analyze a situation and the way we process everything. And this is normal. Conflict in the life of a believer, in the life of humankind, is normal. But the manner in which we differ and the manner in which we reconcile is what sets us apart. We boast a rich history of political leaders, scholars and prominent figures who have demonstrated to us the manner in which people of faith differ. And when we analyze the way in which they differed and reconciled, then it leaves much to be desired on our part. Their differences never ever led them down the road of the breakage of ties. Brothers, something we need to understand is we can never ever expect to bring everyone onto one view in any facet of life. Whether it's something in the community, whether it's a way we analyze business, whether it is a matter of deen, we can never ever bring everyone onto one understanding. Ibn Abi Hatim rahimahullah ta'ala mentions that the famous Abbasid Khalif Abu Ja'far al-Mansur one day called Imam Malik rahimahullah. And he said, "Oh Imam, I intend to take your Muwatta, make copies of it and send it to the four corners of my empire. And then I will send a letter to every governor that from now on the fiqh of that region will be the Muwatta of Imam Malik and the fiqh of Imam Malik. This is my intention." What did Imam Malik say to him? He said, "La taf'al ya Amir al-Mu'minin. O Amir al-Mu'minin, do not do this. فَإِنَّ النَّاسِ قَدْ سَبَقَتْ إِلَيْهِمْ أَقَاوِيلٌ وَسَمِعُوا أَحَادِيث." For certainly people of every region have already heard ahadith. And they have learned fiqh and they have learned their deen from the Sahabi that has come to them. And now if you go to تُحَوِّلُهُمْ مِمَّا يَعْرِفُونَ إِلَى مَا لَا يَعْرِفُونَ رَأَوْ ذَلِكَ كُفْرًا. If you now try to remove them from that which they have learned their entire lives and bring to them something new, they will view this as kufr. So my advice to you, Amirul Mu'mineen, is keep every region steadfast on the fiqh that was taught to them. A celebrated scholar in Islamic history who through the government could have made sure that his view was well spread in the entire ummah. But this most genuine human understood that achieving such uniformity would create fitna in this ummah. He therefore gave advice to the Khalif that do not do this. He understood that difference of opinion in every facet of life is something which is natural and something which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed. The Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum, who we always take great amounts of guidance from, differed on so many occasions. Not about trivial matters, but extremely serious aspects. But when we look at the way that they differed, then we would understand that their brotherhood always remained. We know very well regarding the ikhtilaf that came about after the death of the noble Khalif Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu ta'ala anhu. The difference that occurred between Ali and Muawiyah radiallahu ta'ala anhuma. What must be stated categorically at this juncture is that no one disputed the right of Khilafah. Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu was the most rightful according to everyone. The difference of opinion came along with regards to the qisas and the retribution that needed to be taken against the murderers of Uthman radiallahu anhu. Should it be taken before the bay'ah or after the bay'ah? That was the ikhtilaf. It was a third force that brewed hatred in both camps and allowed a war to come to pass. And this is something we should take note in our very own lives, brothers. Be very wary who is a friend and who is a foe. If any person encourages towards the breakage of ties between brothers, then be very wary of him. While this entire fitna is taking place, Muawiyah radiallahu anhu is tested again. The Caesar of Rome sends a letter to Muawiyah. He says, Min Qaisar ila Muawiyah, from the Caesar of Rome to Muawiyah, Alimna ma waqa'a baynaka wa bayna Ali, that we have come to know of the difference of opinion that has happened between you and Ali. And according to us, you are the most rightful of the seat of Khilafah. So if you wish, I will send you an army, and the sole purpose of this army will be to bring you the head of Ali. The response of Muawiyah radiallahu anhu was short but powerful. He said, Min Muawiyah ila Hiraqal. From Muawiyah to Hercules. He did not even address him by his title of Caesar. He said, Akhani tashajara. Two brothers have differed with one another. فَمَا بَالُكَ تَدْخُلُ بَيْنَهُمَا. What audacity you have to come between them. He says, if you do not cease from your intrusion in our matters, then I will send you an army. So great, the first battalion will be in Rome. The last one will still be by me. And the sole purpose of this army will be to bring me your head so I may present it to my brother Ali. When Ali radiallahu anhu was asked about those who fought him in Siffin, in Jamal, they said, Amunafiqunahum, are they munafiqs? He said, Hum min al-nifaqi farru. They were those who fled the furthest away from nifaq. So they said, then what were they? He said, they were our brothers who differed with us. They were our brothers who differed with us. The two luminaries of the Sahaba, Abu Bakr and Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, had the greatest amount of respect and reverence for one another. However, if you read the seerah, then you would come across countless situations where they differed with one another. They differed with how to deal with the rebellion after the death of Habib sallallahu alayhi wasallam. They differed in aspects of jurisprudence, how to deal with barren land that has been conquered, and various other aspects. But when you look into their lives, you will find that reverence and respect, we don't have the time to go into it. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was on his deathbed. People came to him and said, how will you answer Allah Ta'ala when He questions you about nominating Umar to be the next Khalif when you are aware of his harshness? He said, Abillahi tukhawifunani? Are you trying to strike fear in my heart with regards to my Allah? I will very comfortably say to Allah Ta'ala that, oh Allah, I placed the best amongst them in charge of them. Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu is about Sa'id al-Mimbar, is about to go onto the Mimbar on his day of inauguration as the new Khalif. And he stands on the place of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu when he pauses. And he says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should never ever see me as someone who views himself equal to the likes of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. And he goes down a step. Reverence and respect. Respected brothers, let's conclude this talk with a few points, inshallah ta'ala. Effectively, we can summarize it in a few points. The first is, expect differences. Whether it is in your family, in your communities, in your masjid, differences is something that is normal. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal radiallahu ta'ala rahimahullah ta'ala said, with regards to Ishaq ibn Rahway, that no scholar ever traveled to Khurasan, the likes of Ishaq ibn Rahway, وَإِنْ كَانُوا يُخَالِفُونَ فِي أَشْيَاءٍ, even though him and his followers differ with us on many, many aspects. فَإِنَّ النَّاسِ لَمْ يَزَلْ يُخَالِفُ بَعْضُهُمْ بَعْضًا. People will continuously disagree. That is something normal. To wish for anything else is a fool's dream. Number two is always opt for reconciling between two brothers who are at loggerheads with one another. And if Allah Ta'ala utilizes you for that, then consider yourself extremely fortunate. One day the Nabi of Allah is on the Mimbar, Hassan radiallahu anhu is near him. He looks to Hassan and then he looks to the congregation. And then he looks to Hassan and then he looks to the congregation and he said, Inna bni hada sayyid. That this grandchild of mine is a leader, it's a sayyid. And I have optimism that one day Allah Ta'ala is going to utilize him to reconcile between two great factions of my ummah that will come at loggerheads with one another. And this came to fruition much later in the life of Hassan radiallahu ta'ala anhu. If you can reconcile between families, between people of a community, consider yourself fortunate that Allah Ta'ala is utilizing you. Number 3 is always maintain mutual respect between one another. Always address one another with respect. In Tabaqat ibn Sa'd, it is mentioned with regards to one of the Ustads of Imam Malik, Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr ibn Hazm, that he was the Qari and the judge of Medina. And he would regularly give verdicts. And his brother Abdullah was a scholar as well. So one day Abdullah comes to his door after he had left the court, knocks on the door and he says, "My brother, you gave a verdict in this particular case today, is that correct?" He said, "Yes, I have." He said, "Oh my brother, فَأَيْنَ أَنْتَ عَنْ هَذَا الْحَدِيثِ?" Where are you? What do you know about this hadith, فَتَقْضِي, that you could have probably given a verdict on this? And Muhammad replied, "Hayhat, فَإِنَّ الْعَمَلِ," that this is the hadith, you are correct, but show me that there has been practice on this hadith. The verdict that I gave was the practice of Sahaba, and that hadith has not been practiced upon. But my point is, Abdullah felt that his brother had acted out in contrast to a hadith, contrary to a hadith. But what was his approach? He came to the door of his brother and he knocked and he said, "Hey Akhi, oh my brother, you gave a verdict. Oh my brother, this is the hadith. Don't you think you should have given on this?" Mutual respect and love needs to remain no matter what. When solving a difference, respected brothers, and this is the 4th point, always remember the strong ties of Islam and brotherhood that unites you. Shaykh Awama rahimahullah ta'ala once had a difference with a contemporary scholar. And that scholar had written a scathing article against him. And in there he said, "لَيْسَ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَ عَوَامَا أَيُّ خَيْرٍ يُذْكَرُ." That between me and Awama there isn't any good that I can mention. And in reply, Shaykh Awama said that, وَلَعَلِمَ أَنَّ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَهُ خَيْرًا عَظِيمًا, that if only he knew that between us there is a lot of good. فَهُوَ رَابِطَةُ الْأُخُوَّةِ الْإِسْلَامِيَّةِ, and that is the brotherhood of Islam. Even if we differ on anything, the bond that Allah has placed between us, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ, is far stronger than any other thing. And that is something we should always remember. One of the things that you would notice, respected brothers, is that when hate settles in, and when ikhlas and Allah Ta'ala is no longer the objective, then your opposition now looks to you like an enemy. Whereas this goes completely against the brotherhood of Islam. Ibrahim al-Basri and Jahiz were two scholars of the 2nd century who differed greatly on the aspect of bad omen. Does it exist? Doesn't it exist? And both of them were on opposing ends. But one day Ibrahim noticed Jahiz passing him in a state of extreme poverty. In fact, Jahiz says that I was right on the point of eating sand in order to survive, and I was waiting for Malakul Maut to come and take my life. It was that bad. So one day I'm lying in my bed patiently waiting for Malakul Maut, and there's a knock at the door. And I asked, "Who is it?" They said, "Ibrahim." And Ibrahim was the one who I dealt with my entire life. So I said, "It's Ibrahim, but it's probably Ibrahim in the shape of Malakul Maut that's come for me." And I opened the door, and a messenger of Ibrahim came and he said, "Ibrahim has sent me." And he said, "Inna qad ikhtalafna fil maqala," that we differed on a certain aspect. But yesterday, I saw you in a state that hurt my heart. So now it's time to put the difference of opinion aside, and it's time for us to resort to our humanity and the brotherhood that exists between us. So if you wish, go back to your hometown, or if you wish, then remain here, but I have sent you money nonetheless to create some ease for you. But to see my next Muslim brother in such a situation truly hurt my heart. Kibar. These were our scholars. These were the people that we take lesson from. And the last point, respected brothers, and I'll draw it to a conclusion. When there is differences, always have good thoughts of the next person. Always consider him to be better. And if you look for the good in anyone, you will certainly find it. Never ever doubt the sincerity of another person. We were in Qari, our final year, and one of our teachers were giving us parting advice. And one of those advisors that stuck with me until this day and left an indelible impression on my heart was that if you want to be responsible for the unity of this ummah and not its further fragmentation, then doubt your own sincerity, but don't doubt the sincerity of the next person. Doubt your own sincerity, but don't doubt the sincerity of the next person. He said, when you go out and you see Allah Ta'ala taking work from the next person, then think of all the ahadith, Nadarallahu imra'an sami'a maqalati, all the ahadith of taking the hadith of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and propagating it. And when you see Allah taking work from you, then remind yourself, Inna Allah la yu'ayyidu hadha ad-din bil rajul al-fajir. That if Allah Ta'ala desires, He can take work and uplift His deen even from a fajir and a sinner. He says, if you go with this approach out into the world, then Allah will use you to bridge this ummah. But if you go out with the attitude that I am right and this is the only way and everyone else is incorrect, then wallahi you will break this ummah further. And correct me if I am wrong, respected brothers, but there is this fire that is guttering right across this ummah. We welcome anyone, even if you are coming with a glass of water, we welcome you. But just don't come with a match. Someone asked, and I conclude with this, that why is it that the words of the pious predecessors were always more effective on our hearts than what we generally contemporarily speak? And they said that they spoke for the upliftment of Islam, they spoke for Allah, whereas we speak for the relishment of our egos. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. In conclusion, respected brothers, the month of Ramadan is not far away. It is not far away. And while we are preparing, and in this month of Ramadan, we will be carrying out acts of obedience, of salah, of sadaqah, of siyam, to be aware of the proverbial leaking bucket, of all your good deeds being leaked out on account of animosity, on account of hatred, and on account of the breakage of ties. Because it very well might be, and may Allah Ta'ala protect us, that we go to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala expecting something, whereas the outcome is something completely different. May Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala protect us. May Allah Ta'ala grant us the understanding. May Allah Ta'ala unite this ummah. May Allah Ta'ala grant relief to our brothers and sisters in Palestine, in Syria, and across the entire world.